Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, are you there? Can I get a little test voice from you here? Say a couple things.
I am here, Brad. I am here and live in black and white.
Wow. It's been an interesting 48, 72 hours. The reason I had John give it a little test there is because major problems here at the studio. Had some damage here at the studio. Power was out several times. At one point in time, Friday night, all three of our stations were off the air temporarily, and I got one of them back up on Friday night, and another one back up on Saturday, another one back up on Sunday. So we should be moving along here. And start off by saying I'm very sad for all the damage that was created by the tornadoes. My Facebook page has a bunch of pictures of what happened down there in Villa Ridge at the Burger King, and Purina Farms got hit. Quite a few of those homes in the Villa Ridge area. In the Wayne County part of Missouri, we had some horrendous damage down there. Several people, I believe, died in Wayne County. Wasn't that Wayne County one? There were like 5 or 6 deaths down there, something like that?
There were. Yeah, you're right, Brad. And we will talk about that in the top 3.
Terrible situation. I hope everybody's back up and running again. I have a couple battle scars to prove. I get done Saturday working all day at the transmitter site, and I come back to my place to take a shower, and I take off my shirt, and I have a long sleeve shirt on. I notice I have a huge gash in my left arm that's bleeding all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, A, how did I get that? And B, how did I not feel it when it happened? And so I'm still like, I don't quite understand. I looked at my shirt. There's no cut in my shirt on the sleeve, but yet in my forearm, I have a nice big gash. So who says I don't give it up for the team? Huh, John, right? I mean, I bleed for this show.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
you do. Now that's it. Not just mentally, Brad. Not just the mental damage that you get from being a radio station owner. You know, in college we call those UPIs, unidentified party injuries. Maybe they're URIs for now. You know, for you, unidentified radio injuries.
Unidentified party injuries. So in other words, what you're saying is when you woke up a Sunday morning, you go, how did I get that bruise, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What table did I run into? You know, who had their hand around my throat? Those kind of things, Brad.
Why is there a gash in my forehead? Right, that kind of stuff. Okay. That is John Combes. Now, John, I have to test something, right? Everything's sort of, here at the studio, we have all these computers, and the computers are on UPSs, but unfortunately, the power was out long enough that, the power was out several times long enough that the UPSs ran out. I don't have a generator here at the studio. So I do have a generator, but it's not hooked up, but that's a whole other story. So let me just test this before we get into it. Let me see if this is going to work, okay?
I'm Casey Kasem.
Did you hear that okay, John?
Yeah, amazingly, I did.
Okay. That's John Combes, Combest. He's the guy that puts together this incredible list of stuff going on in the state of Missouri every single day. He's done it for 23 plus years. Never misses a day. We start the show off with this guy, once again.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what he does, he counts it down. I shouldn't say we. I have no idea what John's going to come with the top 3. From time to time, I will look at his list and say, I think this is number 3, this is number 2, number 1. And 9 times out of 10, I'm wrong. I usually get one of them like once a month or something like that. We started off with...
In third place,
down in Springfield, Missouri, KWTO Radio, last Thursday on the Elijah Harr Show, was noteworthy for 2 reasons. The first one is that we had Secretary of State Denny Hoskins on the air. Denny talked about, one of your favorite topics, Brad, which is the Secretary of State overseeing libraries. As you point out, you can't go to the Kirkpatrick building and see the library and not see a line, or as the British would say, a queue to get in the library. That place is packed. So the Secretary of State not only sees libraries and the controversies associated with those, but also voter rolls. And a unique tidbit from the conversation that Denny had with Elijah and Garett Bowles, since coming into office, it's been about 60 days, Denny Hoskins' team has removed about 150,000 people from the voter rolls. Denny says that includes 17,000 people who are no longer with us, Brad, who are either in ash form, or maybe they are 6 feet under right now. 17,000 people Denny Hoskins has removed, dead people from the voter rolls. Now, I hate to be a little taunty here, but if I'm Jay Ashcroft, I'm going to my team and I'm like, dude, how did we have 17,000 people on our voter rolls and you guys didn't tell me about this? Who's this new guy showing me up? So Denny had a serious conversation about that stuff. And then the second important point I think that we should note is that Garett Bowles, who you remember had his own show called All the Above that was on Saturday and Sunday on KWTO, Garett is leaving radio, and he is going to work for none other than Secretary of State Denny Hoskins. He's going to run the Springfield operation down there. They have a business services division. You know this very well, Brad. Secretary of State oversees business services. So Garett's going to do that. Denny says that Garett's going to do a little bit of work coordinating with agencies, I think, down there too, probably state agencies, and really run the show down in Springfield for Denny Hoskins. So the radio industry, Brad, loses a good one, loses Garett Bowles. So it's Elijah still down there in Springfield, which is a fantastic show. And the radio industry loses Garett Bowles.
Not the first time. Who was the guy that left the Eagle there in Columbia, Jeff City? Who was the guy that...
Oh, yeah, Brandon Rathert. Yeah, he went to go work for Andrew Bailey. Yeah, you're right about that.
Right. So, boy, the government just keeps taking us productive radio people and making them into unproductive government employees, right?
Did you just include yourself in a group of productive people, Brad?
I don't know about that. Okay, John, can I just mention sort of a sidelight here? There's been a controversy. Well, there's been a controversy. Matter of fact, it came up in Trump's pseudo State of the Union address, because it technically wasn't a State of the Union address, about all the people who are like 200 years old who are still on Social Security. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I did see that, yeah.
And there's a bunch of memes that have appeared on Facebook. I've seen it both on Facebook and also on Twitter as well, too, X. People saying, there's no way that happens because the funeral director, and they give the form, it's like SSA 642, the funeral director processes that form when person dies and sends it to the Social Security Administration. Okay, there's a couple of assumptions made here. First off, that the Social Security Administration is getting every single form, because if I'm not mistaken, they're mailed into the Social Security Administration. Do you see a problem with that, John? Do you see a little problem right there?
Not at all. They're incredibly accurate.
Right, okay. Second thing is, there are people that die that never have a funeral director have anything to do with them. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Yeah, folks who were indigent. For sure.
Right. And not only that, there are allegations. I have someone that I know who shall remain nameless because I don't want to incriminate this person because nothing they did, but they discovered that there happened to be a woman who was supposedly married, and whenever they went to see this woman and talk to her husband about some official business, her husband was never there. Wink, wink, nod, nod, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they were pretty sure he was dead and buried in the backyard or something like that. Not a murder, just passed away with natural causes. That still happens. There are people that die, and, they're never officially declared dead by a coroner. They never show up at a mortuary. They never go to a funeral home. They didn't pass away at a hospital. I mean, back in the day, you go back 100 years ago, and for sure 150 years ago, there was no official record of that. I mean, there was, but lots of people were literally, there's places. I've given this example right there on off of Central School Road. If you go Central School Road right off of 364, there's a little business park there where St. Charles County has recycling, and there's a AAA storage back there. When you go onto that little road, there's a little cemetery on the left. And you tell me that all those people have been reported dead officially? I bet they haven't. That's why a lot of them are still on the rolls of being, alive and kicking. You know what I'm saying? Even though, what did Trump say? When he gave the State of the Union, one guy on the Social Security list was 364 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that makes Hildebrand look like a kid.
Yeah.
And speaking of government efficiency, it was a topic of story number 2 today, Brad.
Boy, and I knew that. That's why I talked about that.
Up a notch to number 2.
This Week in Missouri Politics took the show on the road last week, took it to Washington, D.C. Scott Fawn and Garett Hawkins from the Missouri Farm Bureau were hosted by Senator Eric Schmitt in Washington, D.C., kind of a mobile version, a beltway version of This Week in Missouri Politics. Garett and Eric covered the key federal topics of the day. They talked about the federal farm bill. Eric Schmitt touched on Ukraine. And as he says, blank checks for endless wars. They talked about tariffs. They talked about tax cuts. They talked about DOGE. And one of the things that you and I have talked about on this show, Brad, they talked about, hey, everybody loves the idea of cutting government. But then when it's time to cut jobs at, say, the USDA in Kansas City or other local areas, you tend to be a little bit more cautious about it. I think every member of Congress does. So they covered a wide gamut of issues there. And really, I think the most fascinating piece was Scott asked the proverbial elephant in the room for Missourians in D.C., which is, okay, I know we want to cut all this government stuff, and I know we want to punish some other countries with tariffs, but is that going to hurt Missouri? And particularly to the tariff piece, Schmitt pointed out that Trump had tariffs in place during his first term. We did not see accelerated inflation due to the tariffs. And Schmitt said, I'm kind of reading between the lines here, that he thinks that the tariffs on Canada and Mexico are a negotiating tactic to get them to the table to talk about fentanyl, drug importation, illegal drug importation, and immigration, respectively. So he points out that the way I read it, Brad, or the way I listen to it, that these tariffs remain a negotiation tactic with some of these countries.
Well, isn't that Trump? Isn't that what he does all the time? He's the expert negotiator.
The art of the deal. He's the art of the deal.
Right. He throws out something, well, I'm not going to do that because of, and essentially then he puts whoever's on the other side of the table, puts them in a defensive position, and they come back, well, how about this? Isn't that essentially what the guy does?
Yeah. And I think we've seen that, in the first 60 plus days or so, even if you go back to before Trump was inaugurated, after he was elected, and getting concessions from people that you wouldn't expect him to get concessions from. And not everyone is a Zelensky. Not everyone has oppositional, defiance disorder. Some people actually want to come to the negotiating table.
And do you know where Trump learned that negotiating practice from?
Yeah, he learned it at the brass rail because he overheard Bill Eigel talking to Tracy Ellis in a conversation back in 2023. I remember that story, Brad.
He learned it from Corn Pop. That's who he learned it from. That's who.
Remember? And who's Corn Pop?
Don't you remember Corn Pop?
No, I don't remember Corn Pop.
That was one of the classic Biden quotes where he's talking about he grew up in this tough neighborhood and you didn't mess with Corn Pop. Don't you remember that?
I don't remember. Maybe I have memory hold everything involving the old decrepit bastard.
You don't. In B Block, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about the auto pen thing, which has come up over the weekend. Okay, we ready for number one?
We sure are.
The number one.
Sadly, it's a story that you referenced at the very beginning of the show, Brad, and that is the devastating storms that came through Missouri on Friday and into Saturday morning. I have some headlines up today from the Southeast Missourian down in the southeast part of the state that covers what happened down at Poplar Bluff. Governor Kehoe was on the ground right away. He was there on Saturday talking with folks, meeting with local leaders, outlining what the state does, the state emergency management agency does to help folks, really highlighting yesterday, folks who don't have access to housing, where they can find shelter, helping people who've been affected by this. 27 counties had damage, according to the governor's office, and there have been 12 reported fatalities. As you mentioned, Brad, Wayne County has had 6 of those. And then the hardest hit were Wayne County, Butler County, and Jefferson County. So, Governor Kehoe, you can expect, the legislature's on spring break this week, but you can expect most of the news coming from state government will be what state leaders are doing to help these folks.
Very sad. Like I said, one of our transmitter sites is out in what we refer to as Crapville, which is my own little private city, and I'm the mayor, by the way, out there. And to get out to Crapville, I normally take 44 West and get off there 100, the 100 West Washington exit. And I did that on early Saturday morning, and as I crest the top of the ramp, I noticed, when I'm west on 44, there's debris all along the 44 on the shoulders and on the guardrails. I think to myself, man, what's this? Truck must have lost that. No, it was from the tornado. I didn't even realize that. And you crest the hill there, you're coming up the ramp, and you make a right, you go west 100, and oh my God, it's just like a bomb blew up in that area. There is a Burger King with a C-store attached to it, and a small little area where trucks can park back there, the truckers can park and like a truck stop. 3 of the tractor trailers were turned over on their side. The Burger King.
Oh, way.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. The Burger King and combination convenience store, which I've been in dozens of times, I don't know if they're going to be able to save that. I think that might be a total loss. I think they may have to scrape that and start over on that one. There's a building across the street that originally was a restaurant a long time ago. Most recently was Ozark Land, like a gift store, something like that. I don't believe it was empty at the time. It's like almost totally destroyed. Purina Farms has tremendous amount of damage. A lot of the people that live back in the area in Villa Ridge, sort of that area between Union and Villa Ridge and Gray Summit, a lot of damage in that area. Damage down in Jefferson County, damage in Florissant, damage all over the place. Jeez, and here, this is St. Louis weather, okay? On Friday, during the day, it's like short sleeve weather.
82 degrees is what my car thermometer said, yeah.
Right. And then on Saturday night, depending upon where you're at, Saturday night and Sunday morning, it snows. Did you know that in some areas?
Yeah, I got snow. We had a ton of damage out here, too. Did you lose power, Brad?
Oh, how many times, John?
But I mean over an extended period of time?
Oh, yeah. Here at the studio, yeah, for a couple hours.
But but your house kept power?
No.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And the problem I have, and people in electronics know this, is the worst thing is to cycle something very quickly, because that's when you get all sorts of transients and the power, surges and stuff like that. I still have a couple issues with the station we're on, but also crap. And by the way, John, something happened to me Friday. Remind me, I know it's only Monday, but remind me, I already have the What Would John Do segment for Friday. Something that happened to me, which, once again, it happened to me personally, and I have to ask John what he would do, and then I will already tell you what I did, and you may agree.
Okay, all right. And just so we know, because by Friday, if I say, hey, remember that thing for What Would John Do, it might slip your mind. Is there a keyword that would trigger your memory?
A text that I received from someone who I did know who did not identify themselves.
Okay, an anonymous text.
Well, they signed it, but I didn't know the number, and I had to do a reverse number search on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Google. And when I found out the person, I thought to myself, first off, I don't know this person. Second off, why are they being such a jerk? And third off, did they go to did they get a master's degree from the University of Snarkiness? That's what I'm saying, okay?
No, now they're mad about something we said on the show.
No, nothing to do with the show. But something to do with the radio stations, but I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Okay.
And final word on the damage, it's going to be a long time coming. Anything we can do, and I mean this sincerely, anybody needs any help. Years ago, and I'm not trying to pat myself in the back, years ago, someone accused me of not helping out storm victims, and they told me about a person that they worked with in the neighborhood, which in Bridgeton at the time, which was heavily hit. I threw not one, not two, but 3 of my chainsaws in the back of my truck, and I went over to that neighborhood, and I cut these people's yard to the point where we were told by the city of Bridgeton to stack all the storm debris on the front. And when we got done, and a couple other people helped me, but I was there sawing like crazy man, we probably had a stack of branches that was maybe 6 feet, 6 feet tall, the entire front of this lady's property. So don't tell me I don't roll up my sleeves and do stuff like that, because I do. Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me see if I can find this. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a break. I'll see if I can. I think I have the corn pop line. You've never heard this before?
Yeah, I don't recall it, no.
Okay, we'll take a break.